Hello and welcome back to an episode of Farewell Evangelion, the Neon Genesis podcast, where we go through the series bit by bit. My name is Keith, going through for his first time, and as always, I'm joined by Peter.
Hello!
Who is going through for his first. Wait, did I say I'm going through for my first time?
You might have said you were going through for your first time, but you also said I'm going through for my first, and neither one of those is accurate at this point.
Anyways, today we are
Just in case we're clear, this is Keith's last time. He's dying after we're done with this podcast.
Yep, that's the contract I see.
Not like he's dying in 3 months and we're finishing up the podcast, and it's whenever we choose to stop the podcast, Keith dies.
Much like the famous book, The Giver, I am passing on my information as per this contract, and I die afterwards.
Thank goodness. That you're passing on your information, not that you're dying. You're a good friend, I don't want you to die. Just thank goodness you're passing on your information before you pass on. Just next time, choose someone better to pass your information along to.
Someone always needs to know.
Yeah, someone needs to know, I guess.
But today, we read through Volume 4 of the manga series, Asuka Comes to Japan. Asuka Langley Soryu, a young Eva pilot from Germany, comes to Tokyo 3 to join Nerve. The angel Israfel attacks Tokyo 3, Shinji and Asuka are sent to stop it, and Israfel splits into two twins and easily defeats Shinji and Asuka, neither of them being able to cooperate with each other. Nerve manages to damage Israfel, but it survives. Determining that it will be possible to fight the angel, Misato puts Asuka and Shinji together for a training regimen, which has them spending much time together as possible to synchronize their biorhythm.
Yep, that is an accurate description of the events. First things right off the bat. Sorry?
Oh, so okay. This was originally released October 17th of 1997. So pretty much a full 2 years after the anime aired.
Yeah, we're falling behind the times a little bit. Because this was still in the first half of the anime. Yet. We're like 4 out of 18 volumes through, and we're already 2 years behind the anime. Not making great time.
So this one's actually 14 volumes, not 18.
14. Why did I think it was 18?
The Shinji Karaways project was 18.
Right. Because I'm incredibly handsome. That's why.
Exactly.
Yeah. No. So my prediction. I predicted that we would get Asuka Soryu Langley. I don't know if we got her full name, so I could be wrong about which Asuka we got, but we definitely got an Asuka.
Yep, it's Langley Soryu. Yep.
Okay, cool. And then I also predicted we would get a Super Mario Brothers reference. And weirdly enough, even though this chapter came out in 1997 and the Super Mario Brothers movie that it's referencing came out in 2023, we did in fact get a Super Mario Brothers reference in this manga.
I like that you specified that you're referencing, because if you didn't, I was going to call you out for being wrong, because the Super Mario movie came out...
The Super Mario Brothers movie came out way before? Yeah, no.
Yeah, the one that came out in 1993.
Yeah, no, that's not the one I was referencing, or that this manga was referencing 16 years before the fact. 26 years before the fact. I can do mental math, I promise. Yeah, 26 years.
But yeah, I think this is one of the few episodes you actually got perfect scores on your prediction.
Yeah, way to go, Peter. Fun fact, and we'll get into this a little bit more as we talk about the chapter as a whole. My prediction should have been wrong. Because the whole... So, to address it, for those of you who still haven't seen the Super Mario Brothers movie, although, why wouldn't you? It's a great film, and it's really what this podcast should be about, because it makes me feel happy instead of other emotions. The reference that this chapter made to the Super Mario Brothers movie is in the final fight scene of the Super Mario Brothers movie. Mario and Luigi jump into the air with the power of star power, by which I mean like the star power power-up, and not just them being celebrities and having star power. But no, they are kind of celebrities at this point too. So yeah, them having dual star power. They jump into the air and then simultaneously kick Bowser in his energy core, which, if you didn't know, for Bowser is the face. And that's very much so what happens in this chapter. In the fight against the angel that turns into twins, whose name I definitely remember.
Yep, that checks out.
Do you remember his name, Keith? Prove it to me by saying it out loud now.
The angel?
Yes.
Israfel.
Israfel. See, I knew you knew it. I was just testing you.
Oh yeah? Well,
I don't know.
Peter, what was the name of that angel now that we've said it?
Michael.
There we go.
Anyways, Israfel, that fight happens in this chapter, and that's what I was referencing with the Super Mario Brothers reference. At the time I made that prediction, straight up forgot that in the anime, 2 different angel fights come before this. The Gagiel fight, which is the giant whale one, and then the Sandalphon one, which is the one that happens in the volcano. And then after we finished recording, you straight up called me out and twin fight, the Israfel fight, and not Gagiel or Sandalphon. And I was like, I forgot both of those exist. I probably should have predicted Gagiel. I was still kind of confident that it wasn't going to be Sandalphon, because I felt like it was probably going to happen off-screen at best, just where it is an Asuka-centric fight, and this story seems to be following Shinji pretty closely. But luckily, the very first chapter of this, we don't even see the Gagiel fight. We see them watching the wrap-up of the Gagiel fight and being like, yeah, Asuka, she's pretty talented, by the way.
And I gotta say, this, out of all the versions, is my favorite way that they've introduced Asuka into the story. Because...
her just straight up dominating an angel?
Yeah, like, she by herself defeats Gagiel, which matches both what Asuka's supposed to be. She had to team up with Shinji to get, like, a really good sync ratio to defeat him the first time. And this one, like, this is before we even see what Asuka looks like. Just Unit 2 destroys Gagiel. And I think almost... the story almost does it better when it introduces Asuka separate from Unit 2.
Yes.
Because you get this thing of like, oh man, Unit 2's pilot is amazing. Like, they defeated it no problems. Even though Shinji could pilot Eva first time, no problems himself, he ran into issues with combat strategy. But this person knows combat, they know spacing, they can do everything perfectly. And then, with the introduction of Asuka, she's pretty much a little shit. We don't know she's the pilot yet.
The complete dichotomy. We see Unit 2 and Third Child completely separate from Asuka, and the introduction to Unit 2 and Third Child is this brilliant pilot who, this is their first time piloting, or their first time combating an angel, and they decimate the angel, and they seem to suffer no real losses of their own, which, yes, Shinji wins his first fight piloting an angel, or piloting an Eva, but it doesn't go great for him, and it's more so his mother who wins the fight than him. Whereas this time it's very clearly Asuka who is the one winning the fight. And then we also have the fact that Misato explains in a conversation, the third child, they're probably going to be the only normal child. And also,
because she graduated university already.
Yeah, she graduated university at 14. And here's the thing. People who graduate university at 14, never normal. That's not a normal thing to do. But still, we have this whole introduction to the character, and we build this mental picture of, okay, the third child is going to be some very gifted, smart, collected, intelligent fucking character. And then our introduction to Asuka is her kicking a claw machine because she didn't win a prize, and then demanding 100 yen from Shinji, Toji, and Kensuke because of the fact that they got to see a panty shot of hers. It's like, yes, this is quintessential Asuka, but this is... if this was your first introduction to the series, was this manga, you would not immediately jump to, oh, this is the third child who was piloting that Eva. Yeah. And I think you're right. I think it's a great way of introducing the character, because we get that dichotomy right off the bat.
Yeah, because Asuka's always been a character who puts up a front that she shows everybody, and it's really only a few people that get a peek behind the curtain, and this just highlights the fact that that's what we kind of have to expect, that Asuka the pilot is quite different from Asuka the person.
Yes.
Another thing that I like about this version is that there is one problem I have with the introduction of Asuka in the anime, and that's, why the fuck were Toji and Kensuke brought along on the military battleship?
Yeah, I still have that fucking question. And when I saw the battleship, I was like, are they going to explain why they're on the... and then you see that it's a flashback, and Toji and Kensuke's introduction to her is at an arcade, which, that's an environment where it makes perfect sense for them to be. Why the fuck would they be on a fucking battleship?
Exactly.
On the way to collect an Eva.
And the thing I love about this introduction too is like Toji and Kensuke are like, "Oh man, cute new girl, seems great." She starts kicking shit and it's like, "Oh man, her personality sucks." And then fucking Kensuke is like, "Just once I wish a girl would order me around."
Yeah.
Like Kensuke is just all about this.
Yeah. The other two are immediately turned off and they're like, "Oh, I'm comfortable with this situation." And Kensuke is like, "I'm even more comfortable with this situation."
Yeah. And the best part about this too is I feel like most versions of Neon Genesis do a really poor job of showing the fact that Asuka is like combat trained, because we never see anything that's like shows it off other than the fact that she's an Ava pilot.
But this one we get to see her fight a group of grown-ass men.
Yeah, she takes them all down, not a single fucking problem. She's doing backflips and drop kicks.
Also, it's important to notice that the manga even immediately calls out the fact that this weird 40-year-old gang member talks exactly like Toji, implying Toji talks exactly like a 40-year-old gang member. So the theory is pretty much confirmed at this point.
Yeah, we already know Toji's 40.
Yeah. Now we just see an adult man who assaults children who talks just like Toji. It fits the narrative.
But yeah, that's the first chapter. It's just introducing the concept of new pilot, and then we see Asuka, and then at the end of it, Shinji ends up finding out, oh shit, that's the new second child, and she doesn't believe that Shinji's the third.
Yeah, she's very disappointed in the third child.
Another thing that I feel like this volume, or specifically the manga, does better too, is that fact that Asuka does put up a front when she's around adults compared to like anyone else. Like at this point, Shinji's really the only person who's got a peek at real Asuka. Well, I guess Toji and Kensuke.
Yes, but she has done a good job of hiding herself from the adults, to the point where once she does get introduced to the adults, she even like fucking coerces Shinji into being like, "Hey, play the fuck along. You're the one who saved me from those adult men because I was in danger. I didn't fucking assault a grown-ass man, alright?
I didn't murder that guy if the police start asking. You didn't even see me.
You were the one who saved me, remember?" Meanwhile, under her breath, being like, "Hey, you tell the truth, and I will end your life." Much like I ended the life of that adult man.
That adult man and all of his friends.
Yeah. His family started asking questions. They're now dead too. Don't you start answering questions or you'll go the same way.
And then with that, we also...
We get the whole Adam in a briefcase being presented to Gendo by Kaji. Kaji's here.
Not a lot of nerves.
Boy Kaji.
It's not like a lot of like nerves and strands like it is in the rebuild, so I'm sure you're feeling more comfortable predicting which way this is going.
Yeah, this seems to be heading more along the path that it was in the fucking anime, so I assume Gendo's not going to lose half of his face to a hole when he gains godlike power from dealing with the Key of Nebuchadnezzar or whatever the fuck that was.
Yeah, that was the Key of Nebuchadnezzar.
Anyways, we get a lot of Asuka pretending to be the perfect little girl during a lunch break with Misato. And then Kaji fucking walks up on them and, for lack of a better term, molests Misato. And she gets very upset about it reasonably. And then we find out that he's Misato. Because he's not so subtle about how she sleeps.
And this is one of the things I do really like about the manga, is how it's a lot more apparent that Rei just gives no fucks about what's going on around her, because when that line drops, we get the close-up of Misato and Asuka's face, completely shocked, and Rei is just eating her food.
Yeah, Rei is not paying any attention. She wasn't ordered to react, so she's not going to react. This one is also, it's not this chapter, but this one continues my favorite trend of Rei does what to. Because Shinji at one point is like, "Can you even imagine getting along with a girl like her?" referencing Asuka. And Rei is just like, "I don't know. If I'm ordered to, I will." And it's just classic Rei. Does what she's ordered.
Which I guess that implies that in the last volume, her smiling to Shinji was something that she interpreted as him ordering her to smile.
Yeah, you know what you could do to make yourself feel better? Or in a situation like this, smile. And because he phrased it that way, the next time she was in a situation like that, i.e. 30 seconds later, she was like, "Oh right, Shinji ordered me to smile," and so she smiled at him.
Due to a loophole she has to accept because she was ordered to always obey Akari.
Yeah. And Shinji is technically an Akari.
Gendo did patch that out later, though.
Yes. That's the last order that Shinji's able to successfully give to Rei. So. Anyways, we get to class, and we find out, Toji and Kensuke find out that that crazy girl from the other day is actually the third child and an Eva pilot. And clearly only weirdos become Eva pilots, but we don't have to worry about her showing up in our junior classroom because she graduated university. So why the fuck would she ever hang out in a junior high classroom with a bunch of junior high students when she has, to clarify, graduated university? Anyways, next page, she shows up in class. She's a new student. They do not acknowledge why she's in the class.
No, but she does seem to have everyone in the class believing she might be the perfect person. And I love where Shinji, it is so good that Shinji even starts considering, maybe she's not so bad. Drops his pencil, and she, grabs to pick it up and give it back to him. And it's like, oh, she actually is a good person. And they just fucking got a wad of gum stuck to it.
Yeah. And that's the moment he realizes, no, I was right about her the first time. She's the fucking worst.
And actually, this is when another thing comes up that I really like the manga does, which the other ones don't really do a good job of, is Shinji getting someone actually explaining to him what the impacts are and what Nerve is doing specifically. Because Shinji knew they were trying to stop Third Impact in the anime, but no one really explained what that meant, or the precursors, but in this one, Asuka seems to already know what the Second Impact concept is, and what the Third Impact partially entails, which is a big explosion at the very least.
Yeah, and the best fucking part about this is the way Asuka talks about the class. It almost makes her sound like a fucking conspiracy theorist. She's like, oh, I can't believe he bought all that government disinformation campaign about the Second Impact and shit like that. And, yes, she is correct about the fact that what actually happened with Second Impact, but the way she says it comes across very much so like she's drinking the Kool-Aid of some conspiracy theory that just so happens to turn out to be right later. And you know what? When I put it like that, I think we should believe more conspiracy theories, because it worked out well for Asuka this one time.
Yeah, that's all we need.
Yep.
But I very do like that. They mention it in the anime are this ones that there's the government cover up about what's going on, but there's never really an example of that being the case. But the manga does a really good job of highlighting that, oh, they actually are censoring things, so the general population probably doesn't know anything about most of this stuff, and as the series goes on, they end up finding out more and more, obviously. Whereas in this one, it feels like there actually is a decent effort of keeping things secret.
We also end up getting the first confrontation between Asuka and Rei, where Asuka essentially challenges Rei just because Rei's the favorite and Asuka's need to be perfect. She has to supplant Rei as the favorite, but Rei obviously doesn't give a shit about being the favorite. All she gives a shit about is following orders. So, sure, Asuka, do whatever you want. I'm just gonna continue following orders, which really pisses Asuka the fuck off, to the point where she's clearly about to throw down with Rei. And Shinji steps in, and Asuka's like, oh, I see how it is. You love emotionally detached blue-haired girls, eh? And he's like, yep, ever since I first watched the anime that came out a couple years ago, I've been really fond of that type of character. That anime that came out a few years ago, but also after the first chapter of this manga came out, which was really just a couple weeks ago. So, somewhere in the time frame of after a couple weeks ago, but more than a couple years ago, during that time frame, I fell in love with emotionally detached blue-haired girls.
That may or may not be my mother.
That may or may not be my mother. They were definitely the mother of the kid who looked a lot like me. Anime I watched. God, I hope that anime isn't somewhat predictive of what's going on here, because it was fucking tragic towards the end. And this is also where we get that line of Shinji asking if anyone can be friends with Asuka, and Rei being like, yeah, I will if I want to.
Now, I do have to ask, because you did bring it up. So far with Volume 4, I think Volume 4 is probably one of the first big changes story-wise in how things unfold. Do you think this is going the same way as the anime went?
For now, I think we are starting to split off. I think we're gonna still be pretty much parallel to the anime for the time being. I think the ending is going to be different, but not significant. Is that acceptable?
I'll accept that for now. Yeah.
I'll get more specific as to the differences once I see some more of the differences in this manga.
Yeah, no problem. So the next chapter we're going to be getting in this volume is the classic Kaji Ritsuko Misato scene, where Kaji comes up behind Ritsuko, and then Ritsuko stops him because, as she puts it, there's a scary lady watching us.
Yeah, it's the classic love triangle of no one in the circle, no one in the triangle being explicitly in love with another person in the triangle, but there is still that weird friction, and it plays out like a love triangle, even though that's not at all what's happening.
Really, in this, it definitely comes across more clear that Misato has something for Kaji still.
Yes.
And I like that this version of Kaji is more playful about it, too. Because, this Kaji clearly knows that Misato still likes him. Because he even calls her, it's like, but I thought we had nothing going on about us, what are you so mad about?
Yeah.
So that just pissed her off more, and she's just like, fuck you, and then punches the wall.
And after punching the wall, that's when the angel is. Wee-oo, wee-oo, wee-oo. That's the sound of the alarm that goes off whenever the angel attacks. In case you were unclear.
Oh, I know.
They decide that since for the first time ever they have two functioning Avas at the same time, they're going to send two functioning Avas out there to fight an angel.
Yeah, at this point, Unit 0 is still being repaired from pretty much taking the full Ramio blast in the last volume.
Yeah. So they're sending out Unit 1 and Unit 2 with Asuka and Shinji.
Now, I will say, since I think we've been pretty clear that we're reading the 3-in-1 omnibuses going through this, but we're breaking it into the volumes of the original release still. And
yes.
While reading through this, I realized they updated some of the words.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so in this part when they get up, and Asuka says, "Try not to get in my way, Maggot." Let's just say she said a very similar sounding word to Shinji in the original release.
Did the word perhaps not start with an M and potentially start with an F?
Yep.
Was she calling him a bundle of sticks? Is that what she was doing?
Exactly.
Cool.
Asuka has no chill in the original, and with them changing that, I'm curious to see, because this is the first time I've gone through the updated release, I'm actually myself curious to see what they change on it.
I can't say I'm curious because I'm not familiar with the original, so I won't notice changes. But I am curious to go through this, see some relatively mild-mannered Asuka, not even mild-mannered, but acceptable Asuka, only for us to do the podcast. You'd be like, oh no, in this chapter, she called him the N-word. And I don't mean she just said N-word. I mean, she fully said the entire word with an R at the end. There was a hard R. And then she, lit a cross on fire. It was super dark. So I'm looking forward to finding out how awful she is in the original.
Luckily, nothing that extreme. But
having to experience it myself.
Yeah, she had no chill and would just go hard on people. So I do think that this is one of the better changes. People tend to hate when they change things, like in the anime dubs, where Kaoru's line got changed from "I care about you" from "I love you." People were upset with this one, but this one is I think this is a good change.
Yeah, taming it down a little bit might be best.
Yeah.
Especially that line later where she apparently says the N-word. Definitely have to update that. Anyways, fight, kill, stab. The first angel is killed, but wait! It actually had two cores, and neither one of them was destroyed in the first attack. They actually just split into two separate smaller cores, and there's two smaller versions of the angel, and those two smaller versions of the angel defeat both Shinji and Asuka independently. It's bad.
I also like this being the first angel fight they deal with after meeting, because this whole thing's about them learning to work together, and I think narratively, it makes more sense being here right at the beginning.
Yeah. Especially compared to the Sandalphon one, where, like, Shinji's participation in the Sandalphon fight was pulling Asuka or / Unit 2 back up from inside of a volcano. Not a huge amount of teamwork and cooperation going on in that one. Similarly, the Gagil fight, them working together in the form of it really just being them having to synchronize their minds to be able to fight an angel. I mean, yes, technically they have to work together, but the stakes don't feel the same there, whereas this one having them fully collaborative, having to fight two separate angels that are actually one angel split in two, is a lot more setting the theme of working together.
Yeah, because
early on.
If we look at the anime, what ends up happening is they kind of pseudo become friends. So the fact that Asuka's so hesitant to like work like on that type of training with Shinji doesn't really make a lot of sense later on. It's like almost like their relationship goes backwards for that episode specifically, and then moves forward again. Where this one, it feels like, oh, this is the logical spot they would be right after they meet, and Asuka just fucking hates Shinji, and Shinji just doesn't want to deal with her shit.
Yeah, and like at this point, Asuka's entire understanding of Shinji is he's the third child, and people have been heaping praise onto him for defeating the first three angels all this time, and so he's just another barrier between her and perfection, and people acknowledging her for being perfect. So it kind of makes sense why she's so standoffish and wants to do everything herself at this point. Whereas if it happens later, when they've already had collaborative experiences and they've already worked together, she wouldn't feel the need to show off so much and make Shinji look bad. So this fight, I feel like it doesn't make sense that it goes as poorly. And the training that they do, it doesn't make sense that it goes as poorly if this happens later when they've had more experiences together. But when this is pretty much the first thing they've done together after their initial two conversations, it makes a lot more sense that it goes this fucking poorly.
Yeah. And
like her... Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, finish yours.
I was just going to say, her, after the fight goes poorly, and her blaming herself getting defeated by an angel on Shinji getting defeated by an angel, and not that angel then went over and beat her up, but just him getting defeated by an angel caused her to get distracted and allowed her angel to defeat her. It's kind of a bullshit excuse if we're being honest, but it makes more sense that she's grasping for straws and looking for excuses to blame everything going wrong on Shinji if it's this fucking early in their relationship.
Yeah. One thing I do like about this fight, too, is... and this is going back to the fact that, as we mentioned, Shinji, personality-wise, is different between the versions. At the beginning of the fight, Shinji immediately catches on that there's two cores and that something's off, highlighting the fact that he does seem to have a natural talent for, like, discerning things about these fights at the beginning of them.
Yes.
Because that's one of the things that kind of gets mentioned, that Shinji has a natural talent, but really the manga is one of the few ones that actually highlights the fact that he does have this so-called natural talent, where Asuka is working towards her. Like, she has to work hard to be as good as she is.
Yeah, and this is also, like, we see that again when they're fighting individually one-on-one. Even after Shinji noticed there was two separate cores, Shinji noticing that, like, he, in his one-on-one fight, manages to damage the core of the one he's fighting against, and even though that would normally be enough to destroy it, the core instantly reforms and the angel heals. And it's just like, he is fully capable of this fight. They haven't learned the mechanic yet. Oh, that makes me sound like such a fucking loser who plays video games. But they haven't figured out what's going on with this angel, so they don't stand a great chance. But that moment of him, like, showing he is fully capable of winning this one-on-one fight, but it's not a one-on-one fight, and that's what causes them to lose,
yeah,
is another great little moment of, like, Shinji is a very capable person and very knowledgeable and has this kind of natural talent, as he put it. But there's just more going on here that they weren't prepared for.
Yeah. Because they couldn't work together, because Asuka was truly just trying to show up and prove that she was the best. And Shinji, even though he does make decisions for himself in this version, he's still not, like, you know, an absurd outgoing person who's going to take charge. He pretty much was trying to just complete the thing of, there's an enemy in front of me, I destroy its core. And that just wouldn't work in this scenario.
Yeah.
The thing I love, too, is because it plays out the same way as in the anime, where they both get defeated, and then the UN has to step in and nukes it. And I love that even though it's a bit different, Gendo is here as opposed to the anime version, and Fuyutsuki's complaint is just that they have to redraw the map. Not like you guys suck or anything. It's like, we're gonna have to redraw the map with this one.
Oh, you know what this means, don't you? We're gonna have to redraw that fucking map. Again!
Yeah, and then we get Gendo going, you know what your guys' jobs are? It's like, to pilot Evas? No! To kill angels!
You're making Nerv look bad because he didn't kill an angel. And then they have that fight where Asuka says, even though she lost her fight, it's Shinji's fault because he didn't win his fight. And then Kaji comes up on them arguing, even though Asuka fully was fucking assaulting Shinji and verbally abusing him. She's immediately like, oh, Shinji was bullying me, doing that classic immediate 180-degree switch to try and look like a perfect little girl, while Shinji is a dick. And it, once again, the way they've kind of characterized the characters, this makes more sense to me in the manga than it did in the anime of her doing this. Like, in the anime, she didn't do as good of a job of hiding her shitty self in front of the adults. So it seemed weird anytime she did try and act perfect. Whereas in this one, it's very clear, like, the moment there is an adult in a panel, she immediately starts behaving completely differently. And you definitely get the vibe of she is putting on a show of being a better person for the adults, because the adults' opinions matters, where she's clearly already correctly evaluated Shinji and determined his opinion does not matter, so she can be herself and shit on him mercilessly.
Exactly. And then we get, funny enough, another scene that I think really highlights some improvements over the anime is Misato and Ritsuko, when they're having the conversation about, like, the paperwork she has to do, and she's like, oh, I got this plan that will save you, and then she's all happy, and it's like, oh, I didn't come up with this. It was Kaji, and then we see that the floppy disk says "To My Honey" on it.
Yeah.
And this scene, I think, just does such a good job of highlighting. The anime doesn't do a really good job of showing any relationship other than, like, just a blank one between Ritsuko and Misato.
Yeah.
But obviously there has to be some level of relationship. Like, we know it's not a truly deep relationship because Misato and Ritsuko won't allow that type of connection.
And neither one of them is capable of having that type of connection.
But they do feel like they're friends here, even though it's not, like, deeper than surface level. It actually feels... It's like two people reacting that, like, this is how friends should react.
Yes.
Like, Ritsuko seems to literally have, like, an abundance of enjoyment due to the fact that she knows that she will not accept this from Kaji, but the fact she has to as well if she doesn't want to get fired.
Yeah, like, Ritsuko has, like, a normal...
A shit-eating grin on her face.
Well, a normal in the initial interaction, where she just looks like she's content is the word I would use. And then the moment she says, oh, I didn't come up with this plan, immediate shit-eating grin. And then she's like, who came up with this plan? At the moment Ritsuko says Kaji, the shit-eating grin gets turned up an extra fucking degree, and it's just... oh, fuck, I know how much this is going to kill you inside, but that's who came up with the plan.
And that's the thing, like, in the anime, when Ritsuko and Misato end up having their falling out, it doesn't feel that impactful, because they didn't really seem like that great of friends anyways. There's, like, 2 scenes of them drinking and talking about something, but they just do not seem to care. Whereas in this one, we actually seem to have high moments and low moments with the characters, which I think... just sets them up even better for, like, the understanding that, oh, their friendship is just surface level.
Yeah. The next thing that I actually really like about this version as opposed to the anime version is their, like, decision to get them in sync, because this is so early in the relationship. Asuka's already living with us, you guys are spending all your time together. And now
Asuka's not living with them yet.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is she's not living with them. So they just throw them both into a fucking twin bedroom in Nerv.
Yeah.
And that feels like more so what fucking... how you would do it. It's not them living together with Misato. It's no, you two are, in theory, fully on your own together in here. Work it out, get in fucking sync with each other. You don't even have separate rooms. You're in one bedroom, figure out how to get the fucking sync. And then the training is actual dance training and not you're just playing DDR together and you have to prove that you're really good at DDR.
Yeah.
It's learn an actual dance choreography and be in sync with each other like that.
And also we get Asuka just completely fucking with Shinji the whole time, which is great as well.
Yeah. As for that, the rest of it does play out pretty similar to the anime. No one's happy about the situation. But the actual dance training, they have a hard time getting in sync. This is not just from the anime. This is also from fucking Shinji Ikari Raising Project did a similar thing. They have an impossible time getting in sync. Asuka's perfect. Shinji's less perfect. Everyone keeps telling Asuka, just be less perfect like Shinji, and Asuka's just telling Shinji, hey, just be perfect like me, and then we'll be in sync.
Yeah, highlighting the characters even better, I think, because it's like, yeah, Asuka is really good because she put a lot of effort into it, but she refuses to bring herself down to anyone else's level, which is where she's the better one. She should be the one making the sacrifice to sync up with Shinji, and Shinji is just horrible at this.
Yeah. Shinji is not good at working hard and gaining skill. Shinji's good at the things he's good at, and this is not one of the things that he is good at.
Yeah.
And then we also get the scene of
Rei.
Asuka complaining about Shinji not being perfect, and then Misato being like, yeah, well, let's see how well Rei does it in sync with Shinji. And Rei syncs up perfectly. It's like, see, Shinji's not the problem. You are, Asuka. And Asuka runs away crying, and then Shinji chases after her, and he talks to her.
I actually really like this, too, because in the anime, it comes off as Misato told Rei to do this, and then told her that, oh, maybe I should just have those two do it then, as a way of, like, motivating Asuka. But in this one, it comes off as Misato had no expectation she was going to react that way. It's like, why is she upset? I was just telling her a fact.
Yeah, it's just explaining things. I also really like how, in the anime, what happens is Asuka runs away, Shinji chases after, they have a brief heart-to-heart, and then Asuka comes back and redoubles her efforts. Whereas in this one, it feels a lot more accurate to the Asuka character, where Shinji chases after her, tries to have a heart-to-heart, and she's like, hey, how about fuck you entirely? Did you ever consider that? Did you ever consider fuck you? Is that an option? Then she just doesn't come back. At least not at first.
Yeah.
She eventually comes back. And when she comes back, she's like, hey, Shinji, here's what we're going to do. You're going to be fucking perfect, okay? And Shinji's like, yeah, that's a plan. That's a solid plan right there.
Yeah. Well, before they get to that point, it is like Shinji just kind of complaining that she's not trying, essentially, and then she calls him out on his father complex.
Yes, because he asks his father to have lunch, and his father's like, I don't fucking know who you are.
And then we get a variation on Asuka's origin, because she has a different origin in every single one. And this one, it's close to her origin in Rebuild, whereas she doesn't have a father, it's her mother who did in vitro.
Yeah, she's test tube baby.
Yeah, but the difference between this one and the Shikinami version is the Shikinami version was not done this way to have a child, it was to make essentially an Eva pilot. Whereas with this one, it was just the mother wanted a child.
Yeah.
So as Shinji ends up pointing out later on, when she's calling for her mother in his sleep, it's like, she's got trauma too. She got a complex.
Yeah. Also, I fucking love that whole interaction where she's like, oh, you've got a bit of a father complex, don't you? And she's just like, I don't have a father complex. I just, like... And then, like, goes on to explain his relationship with his father, and she's like, I don't know. Sounds pretty fucking complex to me. It's like, yes, you're right. He has a father complex. And then, yes, he calls her out for having a mother complex when she calls out for her mother in her sleep.
The thing I do like about this, too, is because when he asks, like, oh, how's your relationship with your father? He's like, oh, I don't have one. My mom went to a sperm bank. And he's like, can you please stop saying sperm so much?
Anyways, she comes back. She kicks out the secret hidden camera that's been watching them. And then she's like, we're gonna go train now. And while that's happening, Misato's like, oh no, the camera went out. Whatever are we going to do? We should check on them. And Kaji's like, nah, they just turned the camera off in their bedroom, baby doll. They want some privacy right now, I promise you that. How about we make out a little bit? And then she slaps the shit out of him, which is good.
Also, you kind of went over a bit, but she kicks the camera on the ceiling out with no help. She jumps and kicks the camera ceiling.
Yeah, quite impressively, I'll be honest.
But I like when he's like, when she does that, and he's like, "What are you trying to do? You're fucking crazy." She's like, "Training."
Yeah, isn't it obvious? Also, I enjoy how after Misato slaps the shit out of Kaji, because she's like, "Hey, that hurt," and Misato's like, "Yeah, it was fucking supposed to." Anyways, yes, they train all night into the wee hours of the morning, getting little to no sleep, but they perfect everything. And by everything, I mean like 98% of the experience.
I do love that the angels just start attacking. It's like, wait, where are they? And they run to the room and they're just fucking passed out on the floor.
Fully fucking unconscious. Anyways, they send them up there, they fight the angels. I personally imagine music playing the entire time. I mean, they also show music notes, so music is playing in the comic, but I internally hear the music.
Yeah, their dance choreography is also their fight choreography, so they got the music playing over the speakers for them.
Which I choose to believe that the music that they're dance fighting to is Sabotage by the Beastie Boys. It just feels appropriate.
Given their dance choreography, that's some interesting dance moves for Sabotage.
It's interpretive dance, Keith. Just learn to accept it.
They were crumping.
Yes. And then they end up defeating the angels in a very Super Mario Brothers-esque way.
Yeah.
However, you may have noticed that little bit of foreshadowing I said earlier, but managed to perfect 98% of their choreography. The last 2% is landing after the superhero jump kick, and they don't perfect this.
And I do like this change, because in the original anime version, they are still at each other afterwards, like, oh, you know, they learn to work together, but they still hate each other type deal. In this one, we actually get Asuka kind of, like, call him a little bit for fucking up the last move, and he apologizes for it, because he knows he made a mistake, instead of calling her back out. And then they actually have, like, a kind of a nice moment.
Yeah, where he's like, you know, she's like, yeah, you're right, I fucked up. Practice the landing. And she's like, you know what, I'll forgive you. You did pretty alright.
You did good, kid.
You did pretty alright for a klutz. And I'll assume in the original version, she didn't say klutz. She said something much worse than klutz. And he feels real happy about it, and then they both go to sleep.
Yeah. And that ends Volume 4. So yeah, we do start getting some of those big changes to the plot where order of things and just generally how characters interact with each other has changed a bit.
Yeah, at this point in the series, in the anime, they were living together. At this point, they have spent 5 days in the same room, but we haven't gotten any confirmation that Asuka is moving in with Shinji and Misato yet. So, who knows where that's going?
Exactly.
Except for me, I know, and I will prove it when we talk about what's happening next time. But we're not there yet, so
okay.
Prepare yourself mentally for an incredibly accurate prediction.
Well, I would ask what your thoughts on like where the series is going is, but as you already kind of stated, you think it's still on the same track, but with slight differences.
Yeah, I assume the differences are going to start becoming more stark as we go on. But for the time being, I think the best way I could put it is the story's going to continue heading parallel, where it has shifted itself from the original story, but still seems to be heading in the same direction.
Oh yeah, and a lot of times where I'm pointing out that it's like, oh, this version is, like, I personally think the superior version of how they did this exact thing in the anime, stuff like that. Obviously, there's benefits of the fact that they have more time to flesh out some of these things. They don't have to cram it into, like, a 22-minute segment for an episode.
Yeah, but they can take their time and stretch it out.
And that's the thing. Overall, I just think they had more time, so they're able to flush out. This is also after the anime had already finished at this point. So they had things that they could look at how they did in the anime and how it paid off, and then improve on it. And overall, I think the characters are done a lot better to what we know. Obviously, we can say that because we know what Asuka's supposed to be. We know what Misato's supposed to be. We know what Shinji's supposed to be. and having that understanding and how the character's acting, it feels like it makes more sense than what we originally got. Which then makes for those really good scenes that tend to be improvements on the original.
Yes. Agreed. So, overall, what do you think of this volume there, Keith Edward Ramsey?
Yeah, I really like this one. As I said, it's got my favorite version of Asuka's introduction right off the bat, so that puts it up there over most of the other versions of the series in itself. And I feel like they just handle the characters in a way that makes a lot more sense for what they're supposed to get to eventually.
Yeah, it's interesting to say that they're handling the characters better, just because if you look at it from the loop perspective, where these are all different timelines, then it makes sense that the characters are different, so them being handled differently also makes sense. So I don't know how far I would go on that one. But I will agree that this has been... I am really enjoying the characterization of the characters in this version, and definitely really enjoyed this introduction of Asuka and, like, the start of her collaborations with Shinji in this version as opposed to others. It feels a lot more logical and kind of natural that it's happening this way as opposed to the way it happened in the anime, for example.
Yeah, it's almost like you can get more engaged and connected to the characters. Yeah,
the characters end up making a lot more sense, and their decisions make sense, which means it's going to be all that much worse when they end up inevitably fucking dying or getting paralyzed from the waist down due to a swimming accident.
Assuming it plays out the same way.
Yes.
But yeah, with that, we'll wrap up this episode then. So if you'd like to reach out to us, you can always send us an email at whatismypodcastabout@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or concerns. On top of that, this podcast episodes go up every Wednesday on all podcasting platforms as well as YouTube. So like, favorite, subscribe, tell a friend, leave a review. Word of mouth helps with passing the information around and growing the community. On top of that, we also have an Instagram page, Farewell Evangelion, where we update the posts about the random parts about the series, facts, tidbits, explanations as we go through, as well as polls here and there, where people can vote on. We're also pretty quick about getting back to you on anything that you post there as well. And, as always, to finish off, Peter, what can we expect next time on the 5th volume of the Neon Genesis Evangelion Manga?
Alright, in Volume 5, they're finally going to get around to moving Asuka into Misato's apartment with Shinji. They're all going to live together, lots of friction there. Also, now that all of the kind of original characters have been introduced, I have a feeling we're going to start getting into some backstory stuff, probably learn a bit about Yui in the next volume as well. And always, as always, we always will have fan service
and plenty of it.